everyone, and welcome back to the Easy Daily English Podcast. I'm Juliana Dolver.
Today, we are taking just a massive stack of research. We've got articles, linguistic studies, and real-world anecdotes from learners who've actually done it. And we're plunging deep into what might be the single most important element of language acquisition.
We are. We're specifically focusing on the profound and I think often really misunderstood impact of daily consistency when you're learning English. So for those of you out there who feel, defeated by this idea that you need huge dedicated study sessions every week, this deep dive is, well, it's really going to change how you approach fluency.
Right. Our mission today is to uncover the true secret to rapid but also sustainable improvement. And look, if you came here expecting some miracle app or a secret grammar trick, you might be a little surprised.
Yeah.
The secret isn't talent, it's not cramming for hours, and it's certainly not about having superhuman motivation. It is consistency. We're going to give you a detailed, practical blueprint to integrate English into your life without hitting that wall of burnout.
And the sources are just overwhelmingly clear on this point. The concept sounds almost deceptively simple, doesn't it? Just do a little bit every day.
Yeah.
But the results, especially when you look at the psychological and the neurological impact, are absolutely massive.
So let's start with that crucial context, that analogy you often use that really makes this click for people.
Yeah.
The idea of physical fitness.
Right. Okay, think about physical strength. You decide you want to run a marathon, or maybe you just want to lift heavier weights at the gym. Now imagine you try to do this by going to the gym only once a month and exercising intensely for 8 hours straight. What happens?
Oh, you'd be completely depleted. You'd probably injure yourself, and then you'd wake up the next day so sore, just associating the gym with pure misery.
Yeah.
You might be tired, but you would not be physically fitter, not in any sustainable way.
Precisely. You burn out before you even begin to build up. Now, compare that to someone who commits to just, say, 15 minutes of targeted exercise every single day. Maybe it's a short walk, maybe they do a simple core routine while the news is on. That consistency allows the body, the muscle fibers, the cardiovascular system, to adapt gradually. And soon enough, those 15 minutes become a natural, almost non-negotiable part of their identity. Learning English operates on this exact same principle. It's all about adaptation and small compound growth.
And this is where the science really backs that feeling up. We're not just talking about discipline here. We're talking about a very established cognitive concept. Spaced repetition.
Yeah, and the scientific foundation is so crucial because it explains why the brain favors small, frequent exposure. Your brain, well, it's not designed to consume and consolidate massive amounts of brand new, complex information in one sitting.
Right.
That intense sporadic cramming just floods your short-term memory, which, it reaches its capacity very quickly. The information is there for a moment, but the pathway to long-term memory, it's weak.
So you feel great right after that long study session. You think you've finally mastered the past perfect tense, but then 3 weeks later, when you actually need to use it in a real conversation, those words and phrases are just gone. It's so frustrating.
And that's because of something called the forgetting curve. Research shows that without reinforcement, the retention rate of new material just drops off a cliff, sometimes by 50 to 70% in just 24 hours.
Wow.
Spaced repetition actively disrupts this. By providing small, frequent exposure, by using the language daily, even for a moment, you are forcing your memory to retrieve that information again and again.
So each retrieval is like a small workout for that neural connection.
Exactly. Each successful retrieval reinforces the neural pathway, making it stronger, more accessible. And that's the key difference. The goal is to shift the language from something you have to laboriously recall, like a historical fact, to something you just know intuitively, something you can use effortlessly, like your own name.
Which means that over time, these small, seemingly insignificant daily moments accumulate into these massive integrated results. It just transforms the feeling of learning from, an academic chore into a confidence-boosting natural part of your life.
And we can see this principle working perfectly in one of the anecdotes from the source material, a student named Marco.
Oh, Marco's situation is so relatable. He was the perfect example of someone with really high aspirations, but, zero extra time. He was juggling a demanding full-time job with some pretty significant family responsibilities. He was just convinced he didn't have those 3-hour blocks of time that he thought were required for serious language study.
So he was facing that classic burnout cycle. He'd try to cram on a Sunday, and then he'd feel so defeated by Monday that he'd just give up for the rest of the week. But his solution was brilliant, specifically because it targeted consistency over intensity. He integrated a tiny practice into a routine he already had, one that was non-negotiable, making his morning coffee.
And how much time did he actually commit to? What was it specifically?
Just 5 minutes. Every morning,
Hmm.
while the kettle was boiling or the coffee machine was dripping, he would listen to a short, specifically selected English news clip or a 5-minute bit of a podcast about one of his hobbies. He didn't even try to stop and look up every word. He just let the input wash over him.
5 minutes? I mean, that sounds almost negligible. Did he actually see any real results from such a tiny time investment?
That's the magic of it. On paper, 5 minutes is nothing. But consistency was the multiplier. In 1 month, he had engaged with English over 20 times, even on the days he was utterly exhausted or busy. His brain was constantly getting that small, necessary dose of input. After 2 months, he didn't just notice an improvement himself. His colleagues started commenting that his listening comprehension during team meetings seemed sharper.
And that is the ultimate indicator, isn't it? When the results become visible to other people.
Absolutely. The key takeaway from Marco's story is just the profound power of habit integration. Real progress doesn't require perfection. It doesn't require heroic time commitments. It requires making English a tiny, regular, non-negotiable part of your life, even, and I'd argue especially, on the exhausting days.
It's about building an automatic habit, one that requires almost no willpower to start, so you're conquering that time obstacle before it even really appears.
That is precisely what we're going to help you, the listener, do today. Build that habit piece by piece.
So we've established that this daily strategy is powerful, it's scientifically necessary even, but let's move from theory into reality, because just knowing that you should practice every day is fundamentally different from actually doing it.
And this is where most learners stumble. I mean, if the solution were as simple as just be consistent, everyone would be fluent by tomorrow. So before we can offer solutions, we have to spend some serious time decoding the genuine barriers. You, the listener, you need to identify which of these challenges is your personal wall.
Right.
Because recognition is the first, and I think the most empowering, step toward creative problem solving.
So let's analyze the 3 main categories of challenges that our sources identified, the ones that repeatedly stop learners from sustaining that daily practice. First, and this is the most common one, the time obstacle, the sheer logistics of finding room in an already packed life.
Yeah, the time obstacle is, in my experience, often mislabeled. People call it a lack of discipline. It's not that you don't want to study. It's that you are physically and mentally drained. We're talking about professionals with full-time careers, students with demanding course loads, parents juggling school runs and everything else. They're just running on fumes by the end of the day.
And when you're running on fumes, that transition from work mode or life mode into study mode just requires this immense amount of mental energy. It feels like a second job.
Exactly. I mean, take Priya, the hospital worker from our research. She told us, by the time I finish my shift, the only thing my brain wants to process is silence. She said, I genuinely want to improve my English, but opening a grammar textbook after a 12-hour shift, it feels physically impossible.
Yeah.
That fatigue creates a powerful, negative psychological barrier. The difficulty isn't the complexity of the language. It is the energy cost of just starting that demanding mental task when you feel utterly depleted.
So if you set your goal as I'm going to study for 1 hour, that goal itself becomes the source of exhaustion and, the subsequent failure.
And that's the connection. That feeling of insurmountable exhaustion leads directly to failure, which then feeds right into the second major hurdle, the fear obstacle. And this is a powerful internal psychological force.
This is the fear of making mistakes, that absolute dread of being judged or corrected or, I think, worst of all, being laughed at.
It's what we call the freezing phenomenon. We see these highly intelligent learners who have excellent passive knowledge. They can read well, they understand lectures, but the second they're put on the spot, they freeze. Their desire for grammatical perfection completely paralyzes their ability to produce the language. The fear transforms necessary mistakes, which are the building blocks of learning, into these huge personal failures.
We heard from a listener in Brazil who described this perfectly. They said they could write these sophisticated essays in English, but when they were asked a simple question in a meeting, they just felt their mind go completely blank.
And that's because the internal stakes feel way too high. They're viewing the attempt to speak not as communication, but as some kind of performance review. If you fear that every little stumble reflects your lack of intelligence or your inability to learn, you will subconsciously avoid the very activity that causes the stumble, speaking spontaneously.
Yeah.
This is why so many advanced students remain silent speakers. They know too much to make beginner mistakes, so they just prefer to say nothing at all.
That's a fascinating and really self-sabotaging psychological loop. And that brings us to the third major challenge, the isolation obstacle. This is the reality for so many people learning in an environment where English just isn't spoken day to day.
Right. If your entire daily life is conducted in your native language, English just exists in a vacuum. You're diligently studying your vocabulary list, you're doing your online exercises, but the moment you close your laptop, the language just, it vanishes. And this lack of functional application leads to isolation.
That feeling of, am I actually improving? Is any of this working?
Exactly. The listener from Vietnam who studies online but never uses English in real life, they articulated this perfectly. They felt that without real-world feedback, without using English to achieve something practical, like ordering food or asking for directions or just chatting with a new friend, the motivation felt theoretical.
Yeah.
The language felt like a museum piece, not a functional tool. And if the language serves no real purpose in your daily world, it is incredibly difficult to maintain the motivation needed for consistency.
So these three barriers, time, fear, and isolation, they all combine to create what we're calling the motivation trap.
And this trap is that moment you justify skipping practice. You skip Monday because you're exhausted. That's the time barrier. You skip Tuesday because you're worried about an upcoming presentation. That's the fear barrier. And then you rationalize. You say, oh, I'll just make up for the weekend with a big study session.
But as we talked about with the fitness analogy, that intense weekend catch-up is not only exhausting, but it also reinforces the negative association with learning, which just ensures you're going to fail again the following week. That one skip day so easily turns into a wreck, and then two with no progress.
The motivation trap is a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it's fueled by this expectation of linear, massive growth. We expect to see visible progress every single day, but language learning is messy. So the expert takeaway here really needs to be emphasized. Success begins not when you start studying, but when you honestly identify your personal wall. Is it the time squeeze? Is it the fear of embarrassment? Is it the lack of opportunity? Once you name that specific challenge, you can stop fighting this general battle and start designing specific creative workarounds that integrate language into your life, bypassing the need for huge amounts of willpower.
Recognizing those obstacles is absolutely the necessary starting point, which takes us into the next phase, the pivot. And I want to share a piece of my own early language learning struggle here because it directly shows how I had to confront that motivation trap and the perfection trap head on.
I think hearing the honest story, the messiness of the early attempts is so much more valuable than hearing some polished success story.
I agree completely. When I first started learning my target language, I began with that. That intoxicating rush of high motivation. I bought the expensive notebooks, I subscribed to all the premium apps, and I set this grandiose, almost military-grade plan. 1 hour of focused high-intensity study every single night. No exceptions.
You were on fire, prioritizing study above everything else.
Oh, absolutely. I was crushing it for the first maybe 10 days. I was making flashcards, drilling grammar. I was just riding that initial wave of excitement. But then, as it always does, life happened. A huge work project piled up. A family member needed some help, and suddenly that sacred, dedicated hour became impossible to maintain consistently.
And that's the reality check, isn't it? That's the moment when the all-or-nothing mentality gets tested.
Exactly. I remember sitting down one evening, just staring at my pristine notebook and realizing I had absolutely zero energy to perform the dedicated hour I had demanded of myself. And I felt this crushing wave of failure. My internal monologue was lethal. It was like, if I can't do the whole hour, what's the point? I've already missed 2 days. Maybe I'm just not cut out for this.
And that is the perfection trap in a nutshell. Demanding 100% effort or 0% effort, and then choosing 0 because 100% is unattainable on Tuesday night.
That moment was the crucial realization for me. It was the absolute pivot point. I realized that perfection wasn't just unnecessary, it was actively sabotaging my progress. All that mattered was showing up. It was about realizing that something in the target language every single day was infinitely better than one massive study session once a week. I had to let go of the rigid idea of studying and fully embrace the flexibility of integrating.
So it sounds like you completely changed the definition of success from completing a task to maintaining contact.
That's precisely it. It became about leveraging the downtime I already had, sort of hijacking those moments where my brain was otherwise passive. For example, my hygiene routine. It became linguistic practice.
Okay, how so?
While I was brushing my teeth, which is a mandatory 2 minutes every morning, right? I would consciously use the target language, either in my head or whispering, to describe my immediate plans. It was simple, really low-stakes production. I must drink water. I will drive to the office. The day is cloudy. The focus wasn't on finding the perfect verb tense. It was just on activating the production center of my brain.
And that's brilliant because you're using time that is already blocked out in your schedule, and you're practicing active production, which is the skill most people avoid, like the plague.
I applied that same thinking to my commute. So instead of listening to my usual music, I switched to very short news podcasts or simple stories. And even if I only understood, say, 60% of the content, I was constantly training my ear to the rhythm, the speed, and the intonation of native speech. At lunch, I swapped social media scrolling for reading just a few pages of a simple novel in that language. I was chasing the story, not the vocabulary.
Those are such tangible examples of using your existing infrastructure, your commute, your hygiene, your lunch break, to slot the language in without needing to carve out dedicated extra time. It just removes the time barrier completely.
But I have to be honest, this wasn't all smooth sailing. That fear barrier still showed up, and powerfully. I remember this one time, the anecdote about trying to order coffee at a cafe. I was trying to communicate something very specific about the milk, and the barista just looked at me with a completely blank expression. Clearly had no idea what I was trying to say.
Oof. That moment of miscommunication, especially in a public setting, can trigger some really intense feelings of panic or embarrassment.
It did. My face felt like it had turned fire engine red, and I felt this powerful impulse to just apologize and retreat back into English or just run away completely. And that little voice of failure started whispering, see, you'll never be good enough.
So how did you pivot from that psychological reaction right in that moment?
I forced myself to take a deep, conscious breath, and instead of taking the mistake as a failure, I just chose to laugh at the ridiculousness of the situation. I stumbled, I said something clumsy again, tried a new word. I think I even pointed at the milk, and eventually I got my order. But the core lesson was immediate and so powerful. Mistakes are not reflections of my inability. They are necessary data points. They are lessons that show me what I need to learn next. By choosing to laugh instead of retreating, I took away the fear's power.
That's so critical. That single choice reframes the entire learning experience from a high-stakes test into a low-stakes, ongoing experiment.
And slowly, the progress markers started to appear. But the most profound one, the one that confirmed the integration was truly working, was when I started dreaming in the new language.
Ah, the ultimate sign of neurological integration. That's when the language has moved past the conscious, logical part of the brain and has become part of your subconscious operating system.
It felt like a fundamental shift. I was having these narratives, even complex arguments, just running through my head in the new language while I slept. So the conclusion of this personal case study is the same one we're bringing to you today. The real progress didn't happen during those initial stressful 1-hour cram sessions. It happened on the ordinary days, in those consistent, small, 5-minute moments when I was tired or busy or nervous, but I chose to show up anyway.
The key is that those small, consistent moments are what build the bridge from conscious learning to subconscious fluency. So now let's move from inspiration to the precise actions you can take to build your own bridge.
Okay, now we transition from motivation and anecdote to the specific practical toolkit. If you're struggling with the time barrier or the fear barrier, these habits are really designed to be low effort and high impact, so they can fit into the existing architecture of your day.
This is your roadmap for integration. We've analyzed 9 really powerful daily habits, and for each one, we're going to break down the specific linguistic skill it targets, because understanding the why makes the habit stick.
Let's start with what the source material consistently identifies as the most effective habit for active fluency, and that is, talk to yourself in English.
This one is non-negotiable for improving fluency because it helps you dismantle that mental translation barrier. Most intermediate learners, they think in their native language, translate the whole sentence into English, and then speak, which is what causes those awkward pauses. Talking to yourself, even just internally in a stream of consciousness, forces you to think directly in English. You're practicing the internal dialogue, which is the foundation of spontaneous conversation.
It's essentially training the language muscle, but without the pressure of a real audience. So what does that actually sound like in practice?
It sounds like constant, simple commentary. When you're walking, the air is cold. I need to hurry. I forgot my keys. If you encounter a word you don't know, say, the word for a specific tool, you stop, you look it up immediately on your phone, and then you apply it in your internal monologue right then and there. That Active, immediate application reinforces the vocabulary so much more effectively than just reading it off a list.
Okay, habit number 2, which is kind of an extension of the first one. Describe your surroundings.
This turns your entire physical world into a living classroom, and it specifically boosts quick vocabulary retrieval. As you cook, as you wait for the elevator, as you sit at your desk, mentally or just quietly name the objects and actions around you. I see a blue folder, the light is flickering, my neighbor is walking the dog. This trains your brain to access vocabulary under slight pressure and in context, which makes those words functional, not theoretical.
Next up, for those who appreciate reflection and seeing visible progress, keep a short English journal.
And the key here is sticking to that consistency principle. We are focused on expression over perfection, which means you only need to commit to maybe 2 or 3 sentences daily. Write about what you ate, how you felt, one thing you accomplished. This low barrier to entry ensures you don't skip it. But its critical benefit is providing a tangible record. You can look back at last month's entries and clearly see how much your sentence structure or your vocabulary has progressed. And that proof of visible progress is a huge weapon against the motivation trap.
Okay, habit number 4. This is the ultimate low-effort, high-frequency choice. Change your phone language settings to English.
This is genius because it's entirely passive, frequent engagement. You don't have to schedule study time. The technology forces you to interact with functional vocabulary constantly. Every time you check a notification, set an alarm, or adjust your settings, you are passively reinforcing these high-frequency functional words that are essential for navigating daily life. It's like forced familiarity, making the language environment inescapable.
Moving on to input skills, we have music and podcasts.
Yeah, and the value here really lies in enjoyment and immersion. When you listen to a podcast on a topic you already love, whether it's history, gardening, gaming, whatever, you're shifting your focus. You're learning about a topic through English, not learning English as the topic. This significantly reduces the cognitive load, and it allows the rhythm, the flow, the varied accents of the language to just sort of seep in. When you sing along to a song, you're practicing intonation and word linking, which are critical skills for natural pronunciation.
All right, habit number 6, a classic visual reinforcement technique. Label things at home.
Simple sticky notes on objects, the fridge, the door, your computer, a cushion. This is pure passive visual reinforcement designed to maximize the benefits of spaced repetition. You're exposing yourself to basic high-utility object vocabulary dozens of times a day without conscious effort. Every time your eye catches the word mirror, that neural connection strengthens just a little bit. It is a zero-effort way to increase your contact hours.
And for those battling the fear barrier and who really need that active production practice, speaking practice, conversation or recording.
If you have a language partner or a tutor, a short daily chat is ideal, of course. But if you don't, recording yourself speaking on your phone is an incredibly powerful substitute. You are building confidence just by becoming comfortable hearing the sound of your own voice speaking English. And critically, when you listen back, you immediately identify pronunciation errors, grammar slips, filler words, things you might miss in the moment of production. This really facilitates self-correction.
Number 8 connects practice to, well, the most common daily activity for most of us, social media engagement.
You're already scrolling. Why not make it functional? Follow accounts that genuinely interest you, cooks, artists, news sources, but just make sure the content is in English. Read the posts, read the comments. Better yet, try to comment or browse exclusively in English. This is where you encounter real, everyday language. Idioms, contemporary slang, informal structures that are vital for sounding natural but are almost never covered in textbooks.
And finally, the technique that guarantees functionality. Integrate English into existing routines.
This is the opposite of carving out extra time. This is making the language serve a purpose. We used the teeth brushing example earlier, naming the steps in English. If you cook, read the recipe in English. If you drive, read the traffic signs or listen to the GPS in English. This moves the language beyond abstract study and into practical daily life application. When language serves a function, the brain prioritizes that memory and it sticks much faster.
And remember, the goal here is not to do all 9 of these habits every single day. The goal is to pick 1 or 2 that require minimal willpower for you and just commit to them consistently. Even 3 minutes is a victory. So, we've armed you with the toolkit. Now, let's assemble it into the tightest, most efficient routine possible. We are here to prove that 5 minutes is not only enough, but when it's consistently applied, it can be a total game changer. We're going to walk you through the 5-minute daily routine breakdown.
The prerequisite here, and we really cannot stress this enough, is establishing an anchor point. This routine must be fixed to the same time every single day. You have to tie it to an existing habit you already perform without fail. The time it takes for your espresso machine to run the moment you put your shoes on, or right after you press snooze on the alarm. This removes the willpower required for initiation.
Let's break down the clock minute by minute and show how we can hit all 4 core skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing in this tiny little window.
Okay, minute 1, listening. The action is simple input. Find a very short audio clip, a snippet of a song you like, or exactly 1 minute from a news summary. The goal here is pure reception. Don't stress about understanding every single word. Just focus on letting the rhythm, the intonation, and the speed wash over you. This is specifically training your ear to adapt to the cadence of the language, which is often the biggest hurdle for new learners.
All right, minute 2, repeating. This is the active speaking minute. You take a 20 or 30-second segment from the audio you just heard, you pause it, and you immediately say the sentences out loud, trying to mimic the intonation exactly. This is often called shadowing.
Right.
The goal is to build speaking confidence and that physical muscle memory in your mouth for the new sounds and rhythm patterns. You are forcing production.
And it's so important to keep the segment short. If you try to shadow too much, it just becomes stressful. We want this to be low-stakes practice.
Okay, minute 3, writing and vocabulary acquisition. Slow down here. Quickly write down just 1 or 2 new words or phrases you heard or maybe struggled to repeat during the shadowing. Look them up if you need to use your phone's quick dictionary function. Then the application step. Write 1 simple functional sentence using that new word. If you learn the phrase running late, write, "I am running late for my bus." This moves the vocabulary from passive input to active application in a personalized context.
Yes, and the active writing element ensures immediate application. It significantly increases retention. It disrupts that forgetting curve we talked about.
Minute 4, self-talk application. This minute is all about active production and fluency practice. Describe something about your morning, your feelings, the task you're about to do, or even your opinion on the audio clip. And consciously force yourself to use the new word or phrase you wrote down in minute 3. This immediate integration cements the word into your working vocabulary because you've used it under pressure, even if that pressure is self-imposed.
And this is the moment where the language ceases to be theoretical. You are using this new knowledge to discuss your life.
And finally, minute 5, review and praise. Use these last 60 seconds for consolidation and motivation. Read the sentences you wrote out loud again and repeat the new words 1 last time. This is a final dose of spaced repetition before the practice ends. And crucially, give yourself some genuine positive reinforcement. You completed the practice, you showed up, you moved forward today, even if it was just 5 minutes.
I often hear a skeptical question here, and I think we need to address it head on. Is 5 minutes truly enough? You know, for a high-stakes environment like a job interview or a negotiation, how does 5 minutes of coffee-making practice prepare you for that?
That's a critical question. It really speaks to the expectation versus the reality of consistency.
And the answer is that 5 minutes is not enough for acquisition in a high-stakes scenario, no. But it is more than enough for maintenance and integration. 5 minutes daily maintains the neural pathways, it reduces the stress associated with the language, and it ensures the vocabulary you already know stays active and accessible. So if you maintain this consistency for 6 months, you won't be cramming for that interview. You'll be building on a foundation that is already stable and constantly reinforced. Consistency ensures that when you do have an hour for intensive practice, you're not relearning old material, you're building new skills on top of a solid base.
So 5 minutes prevents erosion. It makes the longer sessions you occasionally schedule exponentially more effective. It proves that time isn't the obstacle, routine is the solution. With the structure set, let's move to the language content itself, because to truly progress, we need to move beyond that textbook phrasing and into the real-life language that will make you sound natural and confident. This is how you overcome the isolation obstacle, by making your English functional.
Exactly. Mastering functional, everyday phrases is essential. They're the linguistic lubricant that allows conversations to flow smoothly, whether you're chatting with a colleague or making a new friend.
Let's look at casual greetings. So many learners default to, "Hello, how are you? I am fine, thank you," which is correct, but it's very formal, very stiff.
And the goal here is substitution. Try mixing it up. Instead of that formal standard, use things like, "Hey, what's up?" or "How's it going?" or even, "What have you been up to?" These are friendly, conversational, and they immediately signal a comfort with informal communication, making you sound far more integrated. For example, if a native speaker says, "How's it going?" and you reply, "I am fine, thank you," It creates this immediate stylistic distance. Just try saying, "Not bad, thanks."
Next, let's focus on expressing feelings. Moving beyond just the bare minimum of "I'm fine" allows for genuine connection.
Nuance is so crucial here. Rather than just "I'm fine," practice phrases that add a bit of descriptive detail. Try saying, "I'm doing well, but I'm a bit stressed with work," or "I'm exhausted today," or "I'm really looking forward to the weekend." These phrases move the conversation forward, and they allow others to engage with you personally. If you're asked, "How are you?" and you reply, "I'm a bit tired today, but generally good," you just sound responsive and natural.
We also need tools for managing smooth interactions, especially when we're confused or need a moment, which speaks directly to battling that fear barrier. Let's look at agreement and disagreement, or clarification.
Right. If you agree, switch out that basic yes for phrases that enhance confirmation, like "that's true," or "exactly," or "I couldn't agree more." And if you need clarification, and this is vital, don't just freeze up. Use phrases like, "Could you run that by me one more time?" or "I'm not sure I follow," or even "What exactly do you mean by X?" These show engagement and capability even when you're momentarily confused. It reinforces that you're a participant, not just a passive listener.
And finally, those quick, indispensable action phrases, the linguistic shortcuts that native speakers use automatically.
Oh, these are so vital for sounding efficient and natural in high-speed interactions. So practice substituting your formal phrases with things like "I'm on my way" instead of the very lengthy "I am currently traveling to that location."
Right.
Or, "Let me check," when you need a moment to find information or just gather your thoughts. "Sounds good," which is a casual, quick agreement to a plan. And "no worries." This is a casual, extremely common way of saying "it's okay" or "don't mention it" or "you're welcome." It's far more common than the formal alternatives.
Try writing those specific substitutions into your journal. I mean, consciously using them will accelerate your ability to sound more authentic.
But again, language acquisition isn't just about drill. It's about making English a living, breathing part of your world. And this means linking it to your existing passions and hobbies.
This is how English stops feeling like an external subject and it becomes a tool. If you're passionate about cooking, for instance, follow an English recipe or watch a baking tutorial on YouTube. You're learning functional vocabulary, need, preheat, whisk ingredients that is immediately relevant to your life and therefore highly sticky in your memory.
Or, if you're a devoted fan of a specific sport, whether it's football, basketball, F1 racing, make it a habit to read the news headlines, watch athlete interviews, or listen to the English commentary. The passion you already have for the topic just fuels the linguistic understanding, making the learning process effortless and, crucially, enjoyable. That emotional engagement acts as a powerful memory anchor.
And this engagement directly helps overcome the isolation obstacle through community. We are no longer living in a world where language learning is confined to a classroom. Online communities completely shatter that bubble.
Absolutely. Joining Facebook groups related to your interests, following travel accounts on Instagram and engaging with their stories, or participating in language exchange apps like Tandem or HelloTalk. These are critical paths to real-life practice. These platforms provide low-pressure, high-frequency opportunities to actually use the language functionally.
The anecdote of Maria from Spain is just a fantastic illustration of this creative application. She was facing severe isolation. She had absolutely no one locally to practice English with.
But instead of giving up, she leveraged technology and the consistency principle. She started making short, like 30-second videos of herself speaking English about her day, what she was eating, what she was working on, her thoughts on a movie, and she posted these on a private Instagram account. The audience was small, just a few friends and fellow learners.
But the act of regular creative production, that was the key, wasn't it?
Precisely. The commitment to producing content regularly helped her gain massive confidence in speaking spontaneously. She was practicing storytelling and descriptive language. And then, when she started getting comments and making new friends who encouraged her, English ceased to be this dry academic subject. It became a natural, expressive, social part of her identity, and it transformed the way she related to the language entirely.
And that is the goal. Moving beyond just studying the language and starting to live it every single day.
Mm.
So, we have reached the final stage of our deep dive. Let's just consolidate everything we've learned and establish the final challenge.
We started by analyzing the science of consistency-spaced repetition, the forgetting curve. And we proved why a minimal 5-minute daily effort is superior to those sporadic, exhausting marathon study sessions. Then, we decoded the 3 major enemies of consistency: the time barrier, the crippling fear barrier, and the isolation barrier.
I shared the reality of my own struggle and that crucial realization that progress doesn't require perfection. It requires integration into your existing daily routine. Then we laid out the full toolkit of 9 easy daily habits, from talking to yourself all the way to changing your phone settings.
And we gave you the specific blueprint for the 5-minute routine, ensuring you touch upon listening, speaking, reading, and writing every single day. We proved that even in the busiest schedule, structure, not time, is the key to progress. And we finished by giving you those real-life phrases and application methods, showing you how to sound natural and confident by connecting English to your personal interest.
So we've provided the map, the science, and the tools. Now comes the most important part, taking that first step.
And we want to challenge you right now, listener, to put this knowledge into immediate practice. Join our 7-day daily English challenge. The commitment is simple. Do something in English every single day for the next 7 days. It could be 1 minute of describing your surroundings, posting a 2-sentence update on social media in English, or completing the full 5-minute routine.
The emphasis is strictly on consistency over duration. Do not skip a single day. And we encourage you to share your progress, the new phrases you learned, the moment you overcame a fear or what was difficult, using the hashtag #EasyDailyEnglish. By sharing, you hold yourself accountable, and you help build a supportive community for others doing the same. Invite a friend to join the challenge with you.
Remember the core message that emerged from all the sources. Consistency is key. Perfection is the enemy of progress. View every small step, every 5-minute segment, as a victory that builds massive momentum over the long term.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive and for believing that you can seamlessly integrate this powerful language into your life. As we close, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over as you begin this 7-day challenge.
The essential so what of this entire process.
Exactly. When you adopt these small daily habits, when you move English into your morning coffee routine, into your thoughts, into your hobbies, the language fundamentally stops being a rigid academic subject that you study, and it starts becoming a natural component of who you are and what you do. So reflect on this distinction. What is the difference for you between studying English and living English? And how will that fundamental shift in identity change not just your vocabulary, but your confidence, your opportunities, and your entire outlook on the future?
Embrace that challenge, reflect deeply on that shift, and keep that consistent daily effort going.
Until next time, keep diving deep.